All right, welcome to the fan forum. You have me. I am Mark. This is a brand new year. It's 2026. Um, but I'm going to ask a question right now that I think everybody's thinking: is this the same old Detroit sports teams? And it's a great time to look at this because it's we're not tainted yet. In my opinion, we're still kind of living in sports purgatory with the college football playoffs still going on, the NFL football season winding down, going into playoffs, going into Super Bowl, obviously, the NHL and the NBA. Really exciting what our teams are doing right now, but let's be honest, when you're looking at those sports, you're looking in the after the All-Star break scenario to really gauge your team. So I wanted to come on here, and I'm hoping Hermdo can join me. Kind of unplanned, and really start gauging everybody's interest in where we're at right now. We had a really unique experience with Christmas and the Lions being mirrored together. Normally, I think that would be a fantastic Christmas gift, but for me this year, I'll be honest, we were hosting. I don't think I watched more than 10 minutes of the game. To me, I think this season really gave me a new perspective on the NFL. I think in the last couple of years, everyone's perspective on sports and entertainment has evolved and changed. The NFL being, in my opinion, the biggest global sports conglomerate out there, outside of FIFA. But to me, it just really got me thinking of, if I'm going to put my heart and soul into football, it's going to be college football, because what's going on right now in college football is extremely unique, and we'll get to that. But what's starting to go out in the NFL now is starting to become pretty routine. Hermdo and I equated the what's going on right now in the NFL to wrestling. Well, I did, at least. And to give you an example, how many times did you watch The Rock lose? How many times did you watch Stone Cold lose? Like, it's getting to the point now where when these teams meet, you're starting to figure things out. And maybe the game itself isn't the dead giveaway, but the ending is the dead giveaway. Or the narrative, right? You can start to see one written, and after like week 10. And really, honestly, I think we could look back and say after Thanksgiving, I think is when the narrative starts to come out. Which I guess why Belichick always said that's when you need to play your best football. So I want to get into that. I don't want this episode to be too negative, but it's not a doom episode. It's not a hype episode. It's more of a reality check. It's about just being the city of Detroit, a fan. In my opinion, I think that we're pretty lucky right now, considering all things. We have a basketball team right now that's flourishing in a unique way, too. And I want to get to why the Pistons are a unique, flourishing team. They went against the grain in the NBA. But we have the reemergence of what seems to be a little bit like Hockey Town. Hermdo's done a nice job with these videos, walking us through, all of the development that we're seeing with these young guys for the Red Wings, whether it's Axel Sandin Pellikka, whether it's Mo Sider, whether it's, the whole team's super young. You get my point, right? The Yzer plan, I don't think we've referred to that in a while, and I think that's because we're winning, and we're winning in a way where we expected to win with Yzerman. I think that name is just kind of like when you start throwing the Yzer plan out, you're starting to throw the word SOL out, which, shame on a couple people for already doing that. I have my opinions on where I think the Lions are at right now as a team, but like I said, as a fan base, you've got your Wings. They are, I would like to say, I can start siding on the team of we're reaping the benefits of what we were waiting for, right, with Yzerman. The Pistons, we are reaping the benefits of the drafting and the discipline with not bringing in the wrong players in free agency and losing an identity to a team. And honestly, a recovery job and bringing in a really bad or a coach with a wrong fit and a high salary, and how they just quickly turned that thing around with JB Bickerstaff. And how Cade is quietly becoming the MVP of the league. And I say quietly because everybody wanted KD to the Rockets to be the big storyline and finish off. But what we're seeing with the Pistons right now is typical disruptive Pistons basketball, which is the formula for success for any Pistons basketball team that's ever won. Defensive first, and you score points in the paint. Two things they're the best at. So I guess we'll get right into that. The Pistons obviously have gone against the grain with the three-point shooting, and they've thrown caution to the wind and said, screw it. We're going to go back to the 90s, which I think is so cool, if you want my opinion. Sounds kind of corny and nerdy, so cool, but I really have to admire them because the NBA is probably one of the most copycat leagues. If there's a league out there that everybody is looking to emulate, even the league itself, right? They were lucky to have LeBron after Jordan, LeBron after Kobe after Jordan, etc. And ever since then, we've been looking for a new identity for the NBA. You have your Steph Currys of the world, but as cool as that has changed things and as interesting that is, there's only one Steph Curry, and I just don't see anybody else coming out there that's like his thing. That's what he's known for, right? Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe were known for being like once-in-a-generational players. Steph, he's known for his three-point game, right? Albeit he does a ton of other good things. It's just what he's known for. So when you had Steph and Draymond, now you have Cade and Durant. So you start to see some of these comparisons start finally lining up. Cade and Jalen Duren, their pick and roll. It's that 1-2 punch that we've been waiting for. We've had big guys, we've had shooters, we've had spacers, we've had a ton of three-point shooters. We've always had the wrong combination of good players, right? We've had good players over the time too, right? But this year we finally have the right mixture, and it doesn't seem to be like it's ready to go. Like the window's wide open. If anything, I think we're still a veteran, explosive veteran, like a Rasheed Wallace type veteran, away from making this a contender team. So I don't see this Pistons formula breaking up anytime soon. Obviously not as complex as the NFL and their formula for winning, but from my perspective, I don't see the Pistons changing anytime soon. You can put it in the comments. You can let me know what you think. But, the East is wide open. There's nobody out there contending, in my opinion, for the East as strong as the Pistons are. And then, obviously, the West, I think they just proved themselves. They just went out there in a gauntlet match out in the West. So, to me, I think the Pistons have, I don't want to say a long leash for me right now, but as far as who am I most comfortable when I pull up that stat sheet when I wake up in the morning, it is the Pistons. And you can accredit that, I believe, to Cade Cunningham, because you're hearing the MVP chants now. You're seeing and listening to the conversations in the media right now, but he's playing undeniable offense. He's playing undeniable defense, and I think when you're undeniable in the NBA, I think that's how you break the mold. I think that's how you get to win a championship if you're a Detroit team. and that was kind of the success for the bad boy era and the going to work era Pistons. Is they were teams that defensively broke the mold. They changed the way to the way the game was played. Right? They 100% changed the way the game was played. Um, so I don't know. I just think about it, and I think to myself, what's the answer in the East for the Pistons? And it's probably a healthy Boston team, and I'm okay with that. Um, I'm not. I don't feel like when it comes to Boston, their magic is still as strong as it was once before. And with us being such a defensive heavy team, um, in my opinion, I just don't see, barring some crazy thing that happens to Cade, which, God willing, it's not going to happen. I'm going to take that right out of the universe right now. But we're a deep team. I mean, you saw when Duran goes out, B-Ball Paul goes in, right? There are guys to take over, to give a rest so that we can kind of go for the long haul. I really do. I'm like super excited about this Pistons team. I think there's a ton of options right now for us, when it comes to uh, veteran additions. I think it's hilarious that everybody has us um, everybody has us going and grabbing all these aged vets and all these terrible contracts just because that's typically what a team like this would do. But we don't need any of that. I don't see a need for it one bit. Um, let's see, actually, NBA. I'm gonna look up the Eastern Conference rankings. So it's like Knicks and Celtics. Sorry, Wayne. Your Raptors are 4. Um, I I know we gave Jalen Brunson a run for his money last year. I just think we're in so much better shape to handle them. And considering the Celtics have won a championship, in my eyes, it's going to be theirs to lose. The East is theirs to lose. Um, but hey, like the Thunder and the Spurs are out there battling for as much respect as possible. So I say let the Western Conference melt themselves down. We just stay healthy. I think that's all we need to do is stay healthy. And then we do have an answer for the 3-point game, but last night it got away from us. And I just want to see us get a better hold of a 3-point shooter. Duncan Robinson does nice. Marcus Sasser does nice. But there are nights where they're off, and if their game is off, we're just going to need some more consistency on that. So I don't want to get too much into the Pistons, but I think this is going to be a great year for them. And then I look at the Lions, right? And I mentioned before the NFL as I'm just looking at it through a new lens, right? Started poking around and I'm just thinking to myself, man, this is like if there is such a Vegas ran team, it is the NFL right now. I know Vegas runs NBA, and it has for a long time. Basketball is an easy game to shave points off of, especially when it's 138 to 121. But just the new lens I'm looking at the NFL from. So I say to myself, the Lions and the Chiefs don't make the playoffs this year. It's so strange. So I start looking around and I'm like, okay, magical AI chat GPT machine, can you tell me, give me a list of all the teams in the NFL that Vegas right now hates, right? Well, I'll save this I'll cut the story short because I'm gonna start pulling up stats and charts and arguing with myself. But that 2023 season, that the Lions went ahead and went full force, had a really good chance at a Super Bowl run. they pissed off Lord Vegas, right? The gambling Illuminati, the sports book Illuminati, the powers to be, and they're, in my opinion, being punished for it right now. Um, you're going to see teams like the Bears, who currently Vegas is winning a ton of money on because they're a very soft, safe bet. Um, you're going to see them get rewarded this season, but then they're going to get humiliated, in my opinion, and reminded that they're the Bears. So just calling it right now for what it is, right? The Eagles, they are like the deep state team. So, in my opinion, no matter how rough the Eagles are doing, how hard of a season it is, they're always going to have a shot and they're always going to have some love. I really mistook the whole Kansas City narrative and the refs loving him, and I forgot why the refs loved him. The refs loved him because everybody saw it as a team. It's a small market team and it has to fail soon. That's why the refs loved him. Not because they hung out with Patrick Mahomes like we all thought. They loved him because that was the narrative that was making him a ton of money at that point. Now, I think it's over for Kansas City as far as getting shined with love. Every time Kansas City plays now, the narrative is the refs love Kansas City. So how have teams historically, you can look it up, been betting against Kansas City? Vegas has been losing a ton of money against Kansas City. It's not a team anymore where they are going to push the narrative. So anyways, before you go into this rabbit hole like I went down with gambling and sports, all I'm trying to say is it's really nice that we have a football team that's respectable, that's desired to come play at, that other teams like coming to play at. It's nice just to be part of the club. And for the longest time with the Lions, let's be honest, we're angry because we were not in the club, right? The Browns are still on the outside. There's a few teams that aren't in the club. It's a cool, fun team. We have a ton of young talent. In my opinion, this was the sacrificial year of the coordinators leaving, the offensive line kind of being in a limbo situation where they didn't really have a backup plan for Ragnow. Do we pop the offensive line bubble ourselves, or do we let it pop? And I think they took that risk. They sacrificed a coordinator this year, and I'm thinking to myself, what guy wouldn't want to come play for MCDC, Jared Goff with all these weapons? Why did they just take the path of least resistance on everything? So it wasn't just the offensive coordinator they did that with. I feel like they took a lot of head-on cap space. They saw their fans as very distracted by the booming success and said to themselves, okay, well, the stadium's great. We've raised ticket prices up to 400% by now. We're making money hand over fist. We're selling out of gear and jerseys. Everybody's got a Lions podcast. What's the rush? This is a business. What's the rush? And while you've loved, and been loyal to a lot of brands over your life, can you tell me that they've always been having your best interest year over year? There wasn't a year that the car company you liked put out a couple product lines that you were like, what are they thinking for these past couple years? But you stuck with them. So that's the way I look at it. The whole "we're good" comment, I guess they're good. They weren't going to make any moves. They're like, listen, we're not going all in this year. This isn't our year for the Super Bowl. And I guess if you're a big-time executive, there are years you have to be realistic and say, okay, maybe this isn't our year to go all in, but this is our year to keep the pace up. So not to just break down every hypothetical thing that went through their head, but that's just the reality of the way that ended. So now when you look at the way the season's going to start, you're going to go into an off season and a free agency and a draft. These are going to be the cycles of emotions, right? The start of the off season, the start of NFL free agency, and then the draft. it's going to be offensive line. That's everyone's going to be talking about. And then how can we get Max Crosby away from his 2 and whatever shitty Raiders team that tried to send him home early? So you already know what the headlines are going to be. There's going to be a ton of Max Crosby episodes, and I just think to myself, like, that's not a realistic possibility. If that happens, oh my God, great, but I'm not wasting my breath slicing and dicing. How cool that would be. But the reality is we need to spend some money on the offensive line, and this is pretty much what happens to a lot of teams. Before the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they kind of went through hell with the offensive line and had a real bad season similar to the Lions, and went out and spent a ton of money and went to the – and I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, spend a ton of money in the line and guarantee the Super Bowl, but you can tell me right now that if the Lions – if Brad Holmes goes out and is as aggressive as he is with locking his guys up, right, or on draft day, and he's like that with free agency this year, and he's locking up offensive linemen in making all those depth signs, and it's not like what's missing is rocket science. It's right there in front of him. I just expect him to execute. Now, whom they bring in and at what cost, I think with Taylor Decker retiring, I think Graham Glasgow's going to retire. Them coming off the books will be huge, and it's going to really kind of give you your new anchors of your offensive line, with it being Penei, and on the left side, who's going to own the left side? Obviously, where they're drafting is going to be in a great position to pick up a tackle, a premier one in the late first round. And this is also an opportunity to go out and sign probably one of the best free agent tackles. 2026 NFL free agent. See, these are the cycles, right? And you also have to ask yourself, too, do you want Brad Holmes to set the market? Do you want him to go out, right, and get a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who is technically going to probably look like he's going to hit free agency? Or, what do you want to do? But you're looking at offensive linemen. All right, so you have Tyler Linderbaum. He's a Raven. He's currently 25. He was a first-round pick out of the 2022 draft. He's been to 3 Pro Bowls. He will be a coveted center because he moves extremely well. He's especially as a run blocker. He's unlocked so much for the Ravens run. Sound familiar? All right, I'm not going to read this whole thing and pretend I wrote it for you, but he's a phenomenal center, even with them trying to bring Frank Ragnow back. I mean, if Brad Holmes goes out and gives this guy a bag, are you going to be upset? A 25-year-old, 3-time Pro Bowl center? No, right? So like I said, the moves aren't they don't have to be mind-boggling. I see a defensive tackle in John Franklin Myers. I see a defensive end in Jalen Phillips. You got a tackle like Rasheed Walker. He's available from the Green Bay Packers. He's 25 too. So it's not uncommon, guys. And then there's kind of a steep drop off as far as top names when it comes to that line position. But we have the ability, right? And then you look at corner. Tariq Woolen, he's going to be available as a corner. That's somebody that was we were talking around about trade options with. Brandon Smith, offensive tackle from the Colts. Hasn't been any Pro Bowls. He's 29, but that's probably a one you could get a good deal on. I just give them a little bit of money to come, and they know that when they're playing in this Detroit team, when the offensive line is cohesive, it's a work of fine art what they can do with Goff and what he can do with his weapons. Like I said, it's no secret. This year, it's the fucking offensive line, and we saw the big drop-off. Yes, I know we had injuries on the defensive end of the ball, but I will always argue that I will gladly patch up the back end of the defense, if it means my offensive line is durable, healthy, functioning at a high level, because that's how Jared Goff works, man. We're not the Rams. We don't have Matt Stafford. In those quarterbacks aren't polished quarterbacks like that aren't a dime a dozen. So I just think to myself, for all the Brad Holmes haters out there, because yeah, there's a few. I would say I'd ask you to really judge him on what he does this year in free agency. Now that things are kind of, the cute times are over. The first couple of years he couldn't do no wrong, especially with those phenomenal drafts. But you look at the team right now, we're structured in a sense of a lot of players that sign their big deals are probably going to have to take some money in signing bonuses, but what player is going to say, yeah, no, I don't want the money right now. I don't want it in cash. So let's not act like that's not going to happen. But we have things that some teams don't have. We have a motivated owner. We have a motivated general manager who gets along with the motivated owner, who gets along with the motivated and respecting coach, whom I believe had a little humbling experience this year with seeing why he needs to stop being such a nice guy, in the sense of you need coordinators, dude. Like, it's cool that you can call plays, but you need help. You need coordinators. And that had to be a humbling. I haven't scoured the internet for all these Dan Campbell interviews, but that has to be part of one of his humbling interviews is, I now know I need help and I can't do this by myself, or this, that, and the other, but there needs to be heavy investment in that offensive scheming. We see what having coordinators like Shep, right, when he was the linebackers coach, what having him as the linebackers coach did with Aaron Glenn when he was running the defense. So there's some depth too that we left, depth at coordinator. So some scary things to think about. So I don't have a list of coordinators yet. I saw everybody talking about kind of the home runs like Brian Dable. Obviously, he is a big offensive name, did wonders with Josh Allen in Buffalo. I don't think Dan Campbell's a guy that no one's going to come play for. So I really don't think it's like, oh, well, who's going to come play for such and such, or he doesn't have a relationship. I don't know where the Lions organization's head's at, because obviously the season hasn't been over with. So the big question with them will continue to be, how right do you want to do by your fans? I don't think you want to take these fans for granted right now. Lions fans have been burned in the past, and I think the last thing that we want now is to get burned again. So that's just, you can already hear it and you can already feel it with the Brad Holmes haters. They're just so afraid to fall in love with him. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Lions right now. Obviously, they still have one more game. Doesn't mean I'm gonna watch it. Call me what you want, but I subscribe to the fact of, if I'm not happy with what my team's putting out there, I'm not going to give them the fanfare they deserve. And I've put a lot of emotional time in a lot of these games, so I think this is one of those games that's similar to like watching it at Christmas. It's going to be on. I don't really care. I mean, I guess if we do beat the Bears, obviously, we can hang our hats on that and disrupt their season. But I don't know. I don't want to put a lot of energy into coming up with all the situations and the scenarios and because that's really all it is. Is like, I know we're better than a spoiling team. We're not here to just disrupt your season and walk away like that grimy kid that is terrible at the sport, but he's just gonna still play and start poking at everybody and pinching everybody, right? Like, everybody I know has played a game of pickup basketball with someone who doesn't belong out there, but he's just gonna be out there and try to hurt people, and that's what I'm. We were those teams forever. I'm so sick of it. So in this game, um, that's kind of what we're going to be. Are we going to poke apart the Bears? Are we going to try and disrupt and spoil their Week 18? Right. So that's. Yeah, there is an article, of course. They're already talking about coordinators, and I'm glad they are. Right. I didn't think it would start with Shep though. I thought he did a pretty nice job, but I think what you would do in this situation is you would just probably take it down from a philosophical standpoint on both sides of the ball, right? So we know offensive coordinator is going away from John Morton. I don't think there's ever been a time where they take the play calling away and they give it back or hire the guy. You know, I thought Shep did a really nice job at taking this team, I don't want to say to the next level, but playing through injuries. So I guess Shep, here's what Campbell said when they asked him about it on the ticket. I like Shep. He's really grown this year. I think with any first-time coordinator, first-time coach, you go through a lot. You learn along the way. You make adjustments. You find things you believe in. You throw other things to the side that don't fit you. You find ways to adjust, and it's just part of the process. I think Shep's done a damn good job. There's always going to be some things that you learn from this job, but I like Shep. When he asked if his job was safe, I'm not anywhere yet. I've got one game left, and I knew this is where this is going. Nobody's going to say anything more than this, right? I'm not going to. He said, I'm not about to start going through what I'm going to do here or there. I'm not. So, I don't know. So let's just go think who they're talking about. So 5 candidates to replace Calvin Shepard as Lions defensive coordinator if Dan Campbell pulls the plug. Casey Rogers, and this would be an in-house move, which you'd have to question if that's the right move. Lions defensive line coach, run game coordinator. So Rogers' only experience as defensive coordinator has been 4 seasons with the Jets. Ugh. The Jets had a good run defense for a couple of years of that stretch, but the overall talent level, I don't want to hear about the Jets. Wink Martindale. Okay. University of Michigan defensive coordinator for now. We can only assume with Kyle Whittingham coming in that he's out. So Martindale is the defensive mind. He's got the last 2 NFL stops with the Baltimore Ravens and the Giants. Ended with a pairing of ways. And rumor friction of head coach with John Harbaugh and Brian Daboll. Martindale, 62. His old school style is not for everybody, but that doesn't seem like something Dan Campbell would shy away from. No, it doesn't. Right? So Charlie Bullen, Giants interim defensive coordinator. Giants interim head coach Mike Kafka fired Shane Bowden and promoted Bullen from outside linebacker coach to defensive coordinator after a 2-10 start. And 4 games with Bullen calling the shots. Looks like they'll spare you the details. They're moderately okay. To be fair, the Giants' most recent 2 games heading into Week 8 came to some low-end teams. And they're really just kind of trying to talk this guy up right now. That he has Abdul Carter looking like Abdul Carter should look, and it's the moral of the story, right? So getting the most out of a big-time player. Al Harris, Bears defensive backs coach, passing game. That would be kind of funny, poaching something from Ben Johnson's staff, but looks like this defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. Interesting. Al Harris. As the Lions try to figure out, Harris would be a valuable mentor to teach Terry Arnold and Rackstraw. Let's see. And then here's one that you want to talk about when you put a roster that tells everybody to shut up, would be Brian Flores. So Flores is a genuine wild card right now, in a return to the Vikings under a new contract, getting a second shot at being a head coach, and taking a defensive coordinator job elsewhere, all seemingly in play. He's done a really nice job in Minnesota, and it sounds like all that crap in Miami was just a way to get him out. But we're going to see where the market is for him right now. My question is, and I don't know, I'm not a coordinator, but why would you come to Detroit in for the same job? Why wouldn't you try to go and get your OC or your head coach again? So, but that would be pretty cool. This season kind of, how do I say this? Everybody gets one, and the Lions. This is that season where we're gonna see how they react, how they rebound, and do they act like the big dogs, or do they act like still like an up and coming team? Right? Are they gonna prove to the league that they are what they think they are, not able to hang with the likings of? So I'm actually curious to see who would replace who are the OC coordinators. All right, let's go to Detroit Jock City. And let's see who the names are out there. Okay, JT Barrett. So former Ohio State quarterback, former Detroit Lions quarterbacks coach, I believe. Perhaps the way to revitalize a version of Ben Johnson's Detroit offense is to steal from his coaching tree. When Johnson left the Lions to take a head coaching job with the Bears, Barrett followed. The young coach has previously served. So here's another one. This would be pretty cool. As Detroit assistant quarterbacks coach in 23 and 24. Now he has had a breakout season with Calum. As the Chicago quarterbacks coach, a promotion might be in order. So that would be kind of cool, too, to have JT Barrett back. He was in the league as of recently in 2019. That's pretty decent. But for right now, it's a gamble to bring back any young coach with zero play calling experience. But he understands the offense that we need to run, the run that we were the most successful with. So, and here's another big name. I think if you went out and got Bieniemy and Flores, guys like the Dew, your Walmart Wolverine style fans, they would be super happy. Those are the names that'll help them sleep at night. So Eric Bieniemy, another member of Ben Johnson's staff, isn't questionable. Currently, Bieniemy is the running backs coach. So, he was a big time name as a head coaching candidate every year. He obviously was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs when Patrick Mahomes was at his best. So, Shannon Dawson, so looking at the college level, Miami Hurricanes, OC Shannon Dawson could become a surprising name, but not just for Detroit, throughout the league. And that's who they have right now. And we all know things are going to change, but how they go about this is going to speak volumes to the next, what they're going to do with these guys they just locked up, because these guys they just locked up for the next 5 years. This is, they're setting, how do I say this? They're really stepping up to the plate and having to commit to a strategy now, other than just being a cool success story. We're beyond that. So we're gonna see. In my eyes, like I said, the season's already over and already shut down. But you tell me where you're at right now. Tell me what you're excited about. Tell me what you're the most disappointed for this year. Yeah, this is more than just a Lions podcast, folks. We've got some Tigers problems. We really do. And I want to call this out right now because Alex Bregman was a huge name linked here last year to play third base, and that was, like I said, it's a whole different year now because Tigers fans are going to have to understand that Scott Harris isn't going to do what Dave Dombrowski did, and he's just not going to get you the biggest names every year. And I don't think the biggest names want to come here anymore because they know Mr. Ilitch isn't here. So I look at it and I want to really want to see how Tigers fans are going to react because I think they're going to have a hard time realizing that nobody wants to come here. The Red Wings fans had their little temper tantrum and meltdown kind of after the 19, 20 years in a row of making the playoffs, and you started to see some of these names come up in free agency. You know, and 5 to 10 years ago, they were a no-brainer to come to Detroit. Well, you know, now you look at it, and no one's lining up to come here. They just aren't. We got Kenley Jansen, I know, but you look what the organization just did with Tarek Skubal. They sent him on a goodbye tour throughout all the games, all the different, the Tigers game, or I'm sorry, the Lions game, the Pistons game, the Red Wings game. Say what you want, but that was his farewell tour. That was them saying, we're going to give you Tarek Skubal one more time at all the little Detroit venues before we trade him away. And I don't care what you say. Yeah, I know he wasn't traded in the winter meetings. However, I'm going to tell you right now, he'll be traded. He will be out of here. That's your best case scenario. We are not a World Series team right now. We are a team that has a lot of young talent. Those young core pieces have to get functioning before we can start adding serious. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Pistons. For a really long time, we had a lot of young guys on a bunch of hope. And you would have thought people wanted to come here. But we had to quickly remind ourselves that this was not the Pistons of 04 or the Pistons of 89. And we had to bring it back in. And now you're looking at a core team of Cade, Jalen Duren, Ron Holland. You're looking at draft picks they've hit on. You're looking at success stories that all don't end with big monster contracts. So, I don't know. I just want to keep everybody honest when it comes to the Tigers. You know, we have a lot of youth, a lot of excitement, you know, especially when it comes to pitching. But do you know the MLB is a long, long, exhausting season full of tons of injuries. Young pitchers have a hard time staying healthy, and you will never convince me that we're going to win unless we don't have somebody hitting close to 300. Riley Green, if you're going to get maybe 260, 270 out of him. Spencer Torkelson, seems like he's just a big power hitter, but everyone's okay with that. I'm not. But there's got to be somebody else driving it runs on this team. And I don't want to play this Moneyball lineup. Well, we have a bunch of guys hitting 223, but when we put them in the right position, they'll get a hit and they'll extend. And all that's cool and fun, but you're going up against the Dodgers. You're going up against these teams that are just built like fortresses. So, I know who the Tigers are. Do you know who the Tigers are this year? And then you really, like I said, you look at your Red Wings and you look at your Pistons, and I think to myself, they've done a really nice job at bringing in the young talent, doing the rebuild, but you got to be weary about being stuck in the middle. Um, and when I mean stuck in the middle is once you hit that All-Star break, right? Once you hit that trade deadline, if you don't have any momentum, um, you've got too many wins to tank. You've kind of had a moderately okay season for what, right? Kind of like the Lions right now. In a year where the North Division is highly competitive still, we're not getting a draft pick that's going to be a game changer in a situation. We're just kind of stuck in the middle, like so many of these teams have done before. So I worry more about the Red Wings being stuck in the middle more than the Pistons, but because I think the Pistons have more of an identity than I think the Red Wings do. So the Red Wings are still finding their identity, but the Pistons know who they are and who they want to be. So let me know what you think's going on. Drop some comments in there. I also want to mention, last year we did this podcast. Probably was the most consistent it's ever been, and I want to thank everybody for listening. We're up to 314 view or subscribers on YouTube. I can't stress enough to please make sure you're subscribed. Some of our closest friends who listen the most aren't subscribed. They just don't know how important it is to hit the button. Also, we're on Spotify. Spotify keeps growing. Spotify continues to grow, actually. I don't promote it as much, and it gets more views. So check us out on Spotify. If you're someone who likes more of a long-form podcast, on Spotify, we're on there. And then on YouTube, we're putting out shit all the time. We've got the live videos, the after-game live videos, the reaction videos. Hermdo does his hockey time, and he'll do short little Pistons and Tiger videos, 8 to 10 minutes. But we're really going to take this up to the next level. We're going to have some guests this year come to my house into the basement, record sit right here next to me. So expect to see Hermdo in person, my son Jason, a couple of our friends that you've seen on here. But I really want to thank everybody. It was the cover of our Christmas card this year. We were all wearing sweatshirts with this logo on it. Big, nerdy little project that Hitch and I started doing that is, it's just fun. I don't know. So, if you haven't checked out too, we have a website, Fourth Wall, and you just type in Detroit Fan Forum, and it has all this gear on it. I'm going to go in and wipe out a lot of the corny shit, a lot of the stuff I've just messed around with. The quality of the clothes are awesome, but some of the shirts that I've put out there, the logos are a little cheesy. So I'm trying to steer away from all just football and Lions and make this like a Detroit podcast. This is a Detroit. If you like Detroit, all things Detroit, or you're a fucking Canadian like Wayne and you want to give us your opinion about how you feel about Detroit, yeah, come on, let me know what you're thinking. But until then, I appreciate it, and I'll see you later.